Okay. Hello, all of you. So, firstly, I would like to thank all the organizers of this conference for organizing this conference and also for giving me the opportunity to present my work here. This is the title of my talk, Effect of Small Cosmological Constant on Electromagnetic Memory Effect. So, this talk is based on this archive preprint. Okay. These are the contents of my talk. I will start with a brief introduction to electromagnetic memory effect in flat spacetime. And our aim is to obtain the corrections due to presence of small cosmological constant. Now we know that the vacuum solution to Einstein's equation in presence of small cosmological constant is the de Sitter spacetime. So what we will do is we will study scattering, a classical scattering process in the static patch of de Sitter spacetime and obtain the electromagnetic radiation that is emitted by such a process. Now, as long as we restrict to the static patch of de Sitter spacetime, we can treat the effect of the background, that is presence of a small a cosmological constant perturbatively. Okay, so we are interested in obtaining the first order corrections due to this small perturbation. And
So
we have a
sorry,
late,
excuse me,
yes,
sorry.
yes,
Actually, Shingo says your voice is strange, and I also have the same problem. Your voice is, let's say,
uh, it, it,
it's default here. Could you check your microphone connection?
is it better now?
Yeah, now I think it's okay. There are no problem.
Okay, okay, yeah. So just let me know if there are issues, okay, later on also. Yeah. So like I was saying, we are interested in calculating the first order corrections to the radiative field or the radiation that is emitted in de Sitter spacetime. And we will obtain the resultant corrections to the flat spacetime electromagnetic memory effect. Okay. So let us start with electromagnetic memory effect in flat spacetime. This is the setup.
Sorry, the same problem happened again. Your voice is.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it is due to my cell phone. Yeah, I will keep it away. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
now it's very clear. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. I will.
Please continue.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So this is the physical setup to study electromagnetic memory effect. Here, this represents a classical scattering process that takes place. We have some number of incoming charged particles. So initially, these particles are free. They move on straight lines, and eventually they come closer. As they come closer, they can interact with each other in any non-trivial way. So that interaction takes place within some finite region and for some finite time. So this is the region where the interaction takes place, and it will have some associated length scale with it, which we denote here by this capital T. Now, as a result of this interaction, some set of outgoing particles are produced. And again, as they move apart from each other, these particles become free, and we have straight line trajectories for the outgoing particles beyond this interacting region. Since these particles that are scattering, they are charged, they will emit some electromagnetic radiation as the result of this interaction. And this we study the effect of this radiation on this asymptotic charge. This is some test charge which acts as our detector, which is placed here at a distance which is very large. So the distance is denoted by R naught here, and this R naught is much larger than scale capital T. Now, due to this radiation, the velocity of this asymptotic test charge, it registers a shift, it registers a kick. And this effect is called as memory effect. Okay. Now, the most interesting aspect of this memory effect is that the change in velocity has a universal form. It does not depend on the details of the scattering process. So, it is only sensitive to the asymptotic trajectories. So just the asymptotic velocities of the particle. It doesn't depend on what happens inside this, what happens between the particles when they interact. This is part of this memory effect. And now our aim is to study the first order correction to this effect, to the shift in velocity in presence of a positive cosmological constant. Okay, so let us discuss this flat space-time memory effect, the derivation of this effect in slight details, and then we can move on to the de Sitter case. Okay, so let us write down the equation of motion for the asymptotic test charge. It takes following form. Here W mu is the covariant velocity of the test charge, and F mu nu is the field strength that is generated due to the scattering of objects. Okay, now we know that the test charge is placed at a very large distance denoted by R naught. So we need to study the radiative field that is generated due to the scattering. We need to study it in large R limit. And this is the expression for large R limit of A sigma. A sigma denotes the gauge field. So in the large R limit, the leading order term in the radiative field goes like 1 by R. And this is the coefficient of this term. Now the field depends on 4 coordinates: R, U is the retarded time t minus R, and it also depends on the angles theta and phi. Now the angular dependence is inside this vector q, which is 1 comma x hat. So this q vector encodes the angular dependence of this of this field. Now when we look at the field at u greater than capital T, where capital T is the length scale of the scattering problem. So at such values of u, the contribution to the gauge field comes from the outgoing particles. Here EI denote the charges of the scattering particles. VI denotes the asymptotic velocities of the scattering particles. And the contribution to the field at u greater than t is comes from the outgoing particles. Similarly, when we study the field at negative values of large negative values of u, it gets contribution from the incoming particles. Now, in between, in the intermediate values of u, for u when u lies between minus t and t, the gauge field will take some complicated form that depends on the details of the scattering process. But asymptotically, the form of gauge field is very simple, and we see that it has a shift in its value, and this shift is also detected by the asymptotic charge. So let us write down the expression for the shift in the velocity. Now we know, so the radial component of the gauge field, that is a pure gauge. So the radial velocity does not register any shift. So here we have denoted by WB the components of the velocity which are transverse to the radial direction. So this shift is given by following, it takes following form. Okay, and this shift is over a length scale which is larger than the scattering length scale of the problem. So as we discussed earlier, the amount of kick received by the test charge is insensitive to the details of the scattering. It just depends on the asymptotic velocities and the charges of the scattering particles. This is called the flat space velocity memory effect. Another interesting aspect of this is that the shift in the velocity is proportional to the leading soft path. This is the reason why this shift is universal. Okay, now our aim, so we will discuss a scattering process that takes place inside de Sitter spacetime. And our aim is to obtain the perturbative corrections to the velocity shift due to presence of a small positive cosmological constant. Okay, and so the cosmological constant can be expressed in this form 1 by L square, where this the L will denote the length scale of the curvature of the background, de Sitter background. And we are interested in obtaining the first order correction due to 1 by L square. L is larger than all other length scales of our problem. So in particular, we will obtain the shift in velocity delta W mu due to passage of electromagnetic radiation. This piece is just the flat space piece, and we are interested in obtaining the 1 by L square correction to the flat space results. And here I have given the schematic form of our results. What we show is that the 1 by L square corrections contain three kind of modes. The first, so if we study the change in velocity as a function of u0, which is some time scale larger than the time scale of the scattering process, then the leading order term goes like u square. Then there is an order u0 term and a constant term. Okay. The most interesting aspect that we need to understand about these corrections is, are these corrections universal? Just like we discussed that this flat space counterpart is universal, we want to understand what part of these corrections are universal. Okay, so this is our aim and the motivation for our problem. So are there any questions? Okay, so let me just go ahead. Now I will briefly discuss some basics of de-Sitter spacetime. The background metric satisfies following equation in presence of the cosmological constant 1 by L square. We know that the uh, the solution to this equation, the vacuum solution to this equation, is the de-Sitter spacetime. So let us write down the form of the de-Sitter spacetime in static coordinates. This is very famous. We know that the form of metric uh, is given as follows. In these coordinates, the metric is time independent. We also know that these coordinates do not cover the entire de-Sitter spacetime. It only covers a part of the spacetime. In particular, r tilde equal to L are the cosmological horizons in this coordinate system, beyond which this coordinate system becomes ill-defined. Now, to do our calculations, we will use what are called as stereographic coordinates. So let us give the definition of these coordinates in terms of the static coordinates. Tildes denote the static coordinates, and t and xa are the stereographic coordinates. Now, very interesting aspect of this coordinates is that in stereographic coordinates, the metric is conformally flat. It is, and the conformal factor is given by this, takes this form, 1 over 1 plus x square by 4l square. Another interesting or the useful aspect of this coordinates is that it admits a nice uh, perturbative expansion in the limit L goes to infinity. For example, if we consider Poincare coordinates, then taking the limit L goes to infinity is not very straightforward in those coordinates. But in stereographic coordinates, not only is the metric conformally flat, but L goes to infinity limit is well defined in this coordinate system. Okay, now let us discuss scattering process in static patch of de-Sitter spacetime. Now, one thing that we have already stated is that we are interested in including the perturbative corrections due to the curvature of background. And since we are working in large L limit, 1 by L square is a small parameter of perturbation for us. So we also need to restrict to the region x mu less than small. This is because if particles are continuously accelerating in de-Sitter spacetime due to the de-Sitter potential. So if the particles move distances which are comparable to the length scale of the curvature, then the effect of the curvature can no longer be treated perturbatively. That is the reason why we restrict ourselves to this region x mu less than L. And this region we will denote it as region capital R. Sorry. So our physical setup involves scattering of charged particles in region R. And for the validity of perturbative expansion, all the length scales of our problem, like uh, the range of the scattering forces, capital T, etc., all these length scales should be smaller than the curvature length scale of the background L. In fact, we have a hierarchy of length scales. T is the length scale of the scattering process. So in the region T, the short range forces between the particles are important, and the particles move on very complicated trajectories. And R naught denotes the detector distance. It is the distance at which we place the detector. So this R naught has to be greater than capital T, but R naught is still smaller than the curvature length scale of the background, so that we can treat the effect of the background perturbatively. So let us understand where this region R sits inside the Penrose diagram of de Sitter spacetime. This is the Penrose diagram of de Sitter spacetime. The blue colored patch is the static patch, and the scattering region that we described earlier, including the detector, they lie within this region capital R, such that this region is defined by x mu less than L. So it lies inside the static patch of de Sitter spacetime. And the cosmological horizons act like asymptotic boundaries for this region. Okay, so let us describe the scattering process that takes place in the static patch of de Sitter spacetime. So it should be emphasized that this entire region, including this asymptotic charge, the detector, lies inside the region R in the static patch. Now, before the initially, we have some incoming particles, and these particles are now freely falling. They will move on geodesics of de Sitter spacetime. So these are not exactly straight lines now, but uh, we will try to calculate what are the trajectories of the geodesic trajectories of these particles. And once the particles come in closer, they will interact within this region, capital T. Now, inside this, we are not assuming anything about what happens here. The particles can move on some complicated trajectories. They might even break up into smaller particles of smaller masses, or they can merge together, or any sort of interaction can take place between them. Eventually, the particles will again move apart, and they will move on the geodesic of de Sitter spacetime. Okay, and again we are interested in obtaining the electromagnetic field, the late time electromagnetic field that is emitted due to this scattering process, and study its effect on the asymptotic charge that is placed here. Okay. So let us describe the geodesic motion in de Sitter spacetime in stereographic coordinates. So if we denote the trajectory of a particle by xi of tau, where tau is an affine parameter, then this is the geodesic equation. Now for de Sitter's potential, the gravitational forces goes like order r. With distance, the force falls off as order r. That is why when we solve this equation, we see that the correction to the trajectory, there is an order tau cube correction to the trajectory. This is just the free part of the trajectory, the order tau term. This is the asymptotic free velocity of the particle. And 1 by L square terms denote the corrections that arise due to the de Sitter potential. And we see that they start at order tau cube, which is consistent with this form of the gravitational force. And from this expression also, it is clear to us why we need to restrict ourselves to a small region inside static, because we see if tau becomes comparable to L, the curvature length scale of the problem, then this is no longer a perturbation. And the effect of such terms has to be included non-perturbatively. So only for region when tau is smaller than L, this is a well-defined perturbation. Okay. Now let us write down the current for this scattering process. So let us just recall that the current for a point particle takes following form. Since it is a point particle, we have this delta 4 Dirac delta function that localizes on the trajectory of the particle, and it is simply multiplied with the velocity of the particle times the charge of the particle. Okay, so let us try to write down the current corresponding to this process. Now we know that this part of the trajectory is the geodesic. So we have obtained the form of this part of the trajectory, and so this corresponds to this tau less than minus t. It gets contribution from the incoming particles, I runs over the incoming particles, and this is just the velocity of a particle in geodesic motion. Okay, Similarly, for tau greater than capital T, the outgoing particles again start moving on the geodesic trajectories, and this is the form of the current for tau greater than capital T. So this is just the asymptotic current. The full current will have the contribution of the trajectories even from this region when tau lies from minus T to plus capital T. And since we don't know how the particles move, on what kind of trajectories the particle move here, we don't have the full expression for the current. We just have the asymptotic current. Okay. And this is sufficient for us because at the end, we want to obtain the asymptotic modes in the radiative field, which are universal. That is, those modes have to be independent of the trajectories of the particles inside this scattering region. Okay. Yeah. So just to emphasize, we have not assumed anything about the details of the scattering process, and we want to identify the asymptotic modes that are independent of the bulk details. That is the modes which are universal. Okay. Now we have written down the expression for the current. Next, we need to find the Green's function for M. So let us work in Lorentz gauge, which is defined by this. The covariant Lorentz gauge is defined by this condition: nabla mu a mu is equal to 0. Nabla mu is the covariant derivative with respect to de Sitter background. In this gauge, the gauge field satisfies following equation of motion. Okay. So we have constructed J mu corresponding to our process. And next, we need to obtain the Green's function for this differential operator, so that the solution can be written down in terms of the Green's function. This is the Green's function. Okay. The Green's function satisfies following equation of motion. So this is the wave operator in de Sitter spacetime. Nabla is the covariant derivative with respect to de Sitter spacetime. And delta 4 is the Dirac delta function, the covariant Dirac delta function in de Sitter spacetime. G mu lambda prime is the parallel propagator in de Sitter spacetime. So just to remind ourselves, parallel propagator is defined via this equation. What the parallel propagator is a bivector. It depends on 2 points x and x prime, and what it does is it takes a vector at point x prime and parallel transports it to a vector at x via the geodesic that joins the 2 points x and x prime. Okay. Now we will construct the Green's function using Hadamard ansatz. This is the Hadamard ansatz for Green's function in a curved space, in a generic curved space time. The first term is the delta plus sigma term. Let us try to understand what each of these quantities are. Sigma is the Singe world function. It is the square of the geodesic distance between points x and x prime. And here we have introduced a positive parameter epsilon, which is very small. This is introduced to make these distributions well defined and differentiable at sigma equal to 0. At the end of the calculations, we will take epsilon to 0. Here the subscript plus refers to the retarded condition, that the field point T is greater than the source point T prime. Okay. Now in arbitrary spacetimes, the coefficient of the delta sigma term, it can be an arbitrary bivector, which we have denoted here by u mu lambda prime. It can be a function of x prime. Then there is this theta term. So this distribution is defined such that it is equal to 1 whenever the point T lies in the future of T prime, and it is 0 otherwise. And this term can also come with an arbitrary coefficient v mu, which we have denoted by v mu lambda prime. Okay. So this first term gives rise to propagation of electromagnetic signals on the null cones. It is present in flat spacetime as well. And the second term it is called the tail term. It leads to the propagation of electromagnetic waves inside the null cone. It is called the tail term as the speed of propagation is smaller, less than 1, the speed of light, vacuum speed of light. Okay, so such kind of terms are absent in flat spacetime. Now the form of u mu lambda prime can be obtained for generic spacetimes in terms of the in terms of these geometric quantities of the backgrounds. Here we have already discussed g mu lambda prime, which is the parallel propagator, and this delta is the what is called the Van Leck determinant of the metric. It is given in terms of the second derivatives of the Singe function, the geodesic distance between 2 points. Now all we need to do is we need to explicitly calculate these quantities in stereographic coordinates of de Sitter spacetime. And we need to do it only to the first order in 1 by L square. Since we are interested in keeping only the first order corrections, that is what we will do. So these are the expressions when once we include 1 by L square corrections to these quantities. This is the parallel propagator. Similarly, we can calculate the tail term for de Sitter spacetime. It takes following form. And as expected, we see that it starts at order 1 by L square. Since the zeroth order term, there is no analog for flat spacetime. So it starts at 1 by L square. Now, once we obtain the Green's function for the gauge field, we can write down the expression of the gauge field in terms of the source, J mu. So the first line represents the null propagation, the terms arising from delta sigma. And the second line represents the tail term that starts at order 1 by L square. Now, next we just need to substitute for the current and do these integrals. So I will not talk about the details of the calculation. They are there in the paper. Let me just state the results. So this is the late time expansion of the field. We calculate A mu and study its limit in as u and r are taken to infinity in this order. U is less than r and r is less than L. The first line in this expression is the flat space-time result that we discussed earlier, and these are the 1 by L square corrections to the gauge field. Thus, we see that the leading order term is order u, and let us try to understand the coefficient of this term. So, as similar to the flat space-time mode, the 1 by L square mode also shows a shift. It is shifted as we studied as a function of u. From u goes to minus when u is less than minus t to u greater than capital T, where t is the length scale of the scattering process. And just to recall, EI is the charge, VI are the asymptotic velocities of the scattering particles, and Ji mu nu is the orbital angular momentum of the ith particle. It takes following form. Okay. So we see that the first order correction to this late time radiative field, it has a very nice structure, and it is given in terms of the universal properties of the particles. Then there is a 1 by L square mode. This is actually the 1 by L square correction to this mode, and it also depends on the angular momentum and the velocities of the particles, and it also shows a shift. Now, this mode has a possible bulk contribution. We have seen that we have ignored the bulk sources of radiation. We are just considering the asymptotic sources. So once we include the effect of the bulk, the details of the trajectories, what happens during the interaction time inside the scattering region, then those the details of those terms will start affecting at this order. To this mode, it will not affect this order u mode. It is universal, but it will affect this order u to the power 0 mode. Now, since we have obtained the late time radiative field, let us discuss the corrections to the memory effect. So this is the equation of motion of the asymptotic charge. We want to understand the effect of the electromagnetic radiation on this asymptotic charge, which we can obtain by studying this equation of motion. This is the gravitational acceleration of the charge due to presence of de Sitter background, and this term represents the effect of the electromagnetic radiation that is generated due to this scattering process. Okay, now the velocity, this is the covariant velocity of the charge. It can be written as follows. Now, let us consider the case when the speed of the asymptotic charge is very small. Now, if we try to estimate the order of the various forces that affect the asymptotic charge, this is what we get. The gravitational acceleration is of goes as first order in the speed. So we can ignore the gravitational acceleration experienced by the test charge. Similarly, we also know that the magnetic interactions, they also go like they also depend on the speed of the particle. So we can also ignore the magnetic interactions. And at the leading order, to the 0th order in the speed of the asymptotic charge, we get following equation of motion. F mu t is just the electric field. So the leading order effect on the charge in this low velocity approximation, it is due to the electric field that is generated by the scattering process. Now we can just substitute the a mu that we obtained earlier and see what happens in this expression. So let us first discuss the radial position of the charge. It takes following form. Now, as we discussed earlier, R naught is larger than all length scales of the problem except the curvature length. So it suffices to approximate R is equal to R naught. The radial velocity is negligible, and we will ignore it. We can ignore it within our approximations. And the most important part is the shift that is experienced by the components of velocity which are transfers to the radial direction. Here, this is the projector that projects the components of velocity transfers to the radial direction, and we study the shift in this components as in this limit, where u0 is a time scale which is larger than the time scales of the scattering. So u0 and r0 are taken to infinity in following order. Everything is still smaller than L. And this is the expression of the shift in the velocity. Now, first let us just set 1 by L square equal to 0. And we get back the flat space-time result. This is the leading soft factor. And let us try to understand what are the 1 by L square corrections now. So this is our result, okay? Let us try to understand various terms in this result. So let us just recall that EI and VI are respectively the charges and asymptotic velocities of the scattered particles. And JIs are the orbital angular momentum. So so we have used the convention where eta I is +1 for outgoing particles and -1 for incoming particles. The contribution of incoming particles carries an extra minus sign. Okay. So from this expression, we see that the corrections at order 1 by L square, they are of following form. There is an order R term, order U square term, order U term, and order U to the power 0 term. Okay. This is, let us look at the expression of the U square mode. This is the U square mode. And this mode is universally fixed in terms of asymptotic momenta. VIs are the asymptotic momenta and charges of the scattering particles. So this mode is completely insensitive to what happens in the bulk of the scattering. So this mode is very similar to the flat space-time counterpart, which is completely universal. Okay, and it also has a nice structure. Next is an order U mode. Now, in addition to the asymptotic velocities, it also depends on the orbital angular momentum of the particles. So we expect that this mode would get modified by intrinsic spin of scattering objects. Now, in our case, we are discussing scattering of scalar particles. The particles do not carry any intrinsic spin. But if we consider scattering of spinning particles, then the coefficient of this mode is expected to change such that the angular this j operator this j should include the contribution from the intrinsic angular momentum of the scattering particles also. Also, if we have non-minimal coupling, if we consider the case when the charged particles are non-minimally coupled to the electromagnetic field, then this mode is expected to get corrected. But both these corrections that we have discussed here are expected to be universal. That is, this mode is still expected to be independent of the bulk details of the scattering. Okay, and this mode is completely insensitive to the to the charge distribution of the scattering objects. Like it is insensitive to the spin or the higher order momenta of the charged particles itself. Okay. Next, let us come to the 1 by L square mode. So it is expected that this mode would have some non-universal terms. These non-universal terms here we have denoted by B. That depends on the bulk details of the scattering, like how the particles move, the detailed trajectories of the particles in even inside the scattering region. Those kind of details would are denoted here by this B. Okay. And here we have extracted the asymptotic part of this mode. So this mode depends on the bulk details as well as the asymptotic part of the trajectories. So here we have just extracted the asymptotic part of this mode, but not this non-universal piece. Then there is this order R term. This also depends on the details of the bulk, and we have not calculated it explicitly. Okay. So that's all I wanted to discuss here today. So let me just emphasize, here we have obtained the corrections to the electromagnetic velocity memory effect in presence of a small cosmological constant, which is denoted here by 1 by L square. And what we see is that similar to the flat space results, the some of the modes that appear as corrections in presence of the cosmological constant are also universal, like these two modes. Okay, so thank you for your attention.
So thank you for nice talk. And are there any questions, comments? If there are no question or comment, let's thank